Hello and welcome to another episode of Geared Toward Gear. My name is Sean and I am so glad you're here. So I posted a video either just before the one you're watching now or I'll post it just after on the MedTac Save a Life Kit. That video was, let's call it feature length. It was over a half an hour long and I do encourage you to watch it because it's going to go into more depth than this video. But I did want to provide a condensed version that's maybe a little more palatable. So if you don't want to sit through the 35-minute video, you can maybe have, say, a 10-minute version. So this is a MedTac Medical Gear Save a Life Kit. This kit comes packaged in a plastic bag that is sealed, and you can buy just the kit in the bag, or you can upgrade it and you can get a pack. You can get either the Maxpedition First Response Pouch or the MedTac Sling Bag. The Maxpedition bag comes in black, OD green, and gray, and the MedTac Sling Bag comes in coyote, black, and OD green. The kit itself costs $140. If you want to upgrade and get one of these packs, it's going to be an additional $15. One cool thing though is that MedTac has partnered with Valtac Tactical Gear, although they are separate companies. So if you purchase this from Valtac, which is where you would purchase this, if you're new, when you sign up for an account, you get a $10 credit. So the kit would then become $130, and the upgraded version with a bag would become $145. So that's what we're talking about as far as price. The kit itself is $140, with a bag is $155. And then subtract your discount if you're a new customer to Valtac. And it also is free shipping. So at the end of my feature-length video, I took all the contents and packed them into this kit. The reason I did that is because I bought one of these. This one you're looking at was sent to me by MedTac, and it's going to be sent to a couple other people to look at and review. But after having it and thinking about it, I decided to buy one for myself with my own money. I do not get a discount on Valtac's website. I didn't get any discount from MedTac. There's no quid pro quo here. I just simply thought it was a well thought out, well curated kit, and I purchased one. And I had already used my Valtac credit, so I paid full retail $155 for the Save a Life kit, and I opted for the Maxpedition First Response Pouch, and I chose the color gray. So once I get that, I'll feature it on a future video. But it comes in a plastic bag, and here's a little card that comes in the front of the bag that shows your contents list. And I'm going to basically do the reverse of what I did on the last video, unpack this real quick, show you all the contents that come with the Save a Life kit, and just briefly talk about each one. All right, so I'll try to keep this relatively organized here. So we've got a tourniquet, we've got some self-adherent wrap, we've got some trauma shears, we have an ARS needle, which we'll talk a little about that. We've got some gloves. We have a survival blanket. We have a SWAT T tourniquet. And we've got some quick clot combat gauze. And lastly, we have a twin pack of chest seals. So let me try to get all this stuff basically in frame here, and then I'll just quickly talk about each item. We'll talk a little bit about value and all that stuff, but I just want to give you a kind of an overview of what comes with the kit. Let's try to make this somewhat organized. All right, so let's make sure everything's in frame. All right, we're good to go. So you get a pair of gloves. These are North American Rescue brand gloves, nitro gloves, non-latex, and that's to protect you. So a pair of gloves. Pretty self-explanatory. You also get a pair of trauma shears, and these are North American Rescue brand trauma shears. Anytime you're talking about severe trauma, whether it be a gunshot wound, that goes through somebody's jacket or t-shirt, or some type of trauma, in order to apply these tools, you need to visualize and expose that injury. So we're cutting clothes off, right? That's what these are for. So a good pair of trauma shears is vital in any trauma kit. And these things work incredibly well. I used to keep a pair of these in my ambulance just to cut pennies in half. Kids that would come around always got a kick out of that. So you can cut a penny in half with these things. So they're pretty heavy duty. You get a 4-inch roll of self-grip, self-adherent wrap. You get a survival blanket. This is a Mylar blanket. You get a SWAT T tourniquet, which is also kind of a multifunctional trauma device, if you will. You get the Quick Clot brand combat gauze. This is Z-folded, and it's impregnated with a hemostatic agent. I think I may have already mentioned this, but if not, you get a twin pack of hyphen vented chest seals. So there's 2 of them in here. This is the compact variety, one for an entry wound, one for an exit wound. Very high quality. You get a cat tourniquet, which is the best tourniquet in the world. Don't care who you ask, that should be their answer. If they're a medical professional, the answer should be that this is the best tourniquet in the world. It has the most evidence-based research behind it and has saved countless lives. Then you get an ARS needle, which is a tool that's used to execute a procedure that is advanced and can be dangerous. So I'll touch on that a little more at the end, but this is the one thing in this kit that you really just should not even really touch or use unless you are a paramedic, a physician, maybe like a nurse practitioner or something like that. Otherwise, everything you see here can be used by pretty much anybody. As a matter of fact, a lot of these things are now being taught to young kids, like middle school age kids are being taught how to apply cat tourniquets. It's the whole Stop the Bleed campaign, which is, I think, just awesome. So a couple things to point out about this kit. It was curated and put together, the contents, by a physician, an emergency room physician named Dr. Tomo. And he kind of had this idea that he wanted to create a kit that met his specifications. So he threw around some ideas, kind of partnered with one other person, and then ultimately came together with Valtac Tactical Gear to kind of bring this to market. So MedTac is a separate company than Valtac, but you would purchase a MedTac product from Valtac Tactical Gear's website. So Dr. Tomo is an emergency room physician. He's a very active dude. He's lives a very active lifestyle, outdoors guy. And kind of the way he tells it is that he had an epiphany one day when he realized, when he was out with his family, that, he's a physician, he's a doctor, an emergency room doctor, and he didn't really have any equipment or tools with him should something happen and he needed to render aid to himself, his family, friends, or a bystander of some sort. And so he wanted to create a kit that would be an everyday kit that you could take with you anywhere. And this is that. This is the Save a Life kit. And an important distinction to make here is that you have to draw a line somewhere when you build a trauma kit. And I've always preached building your own. I haven't had a ton of experience with pre-built kits because they're generally very expensive, or they contain not enough equipment or too much equipment. And there may be other great ones out there, but this is the one that I've been looking at for the last couple days and ultimately purchased for myself because I think it is a good base where you don't necessarily have to add anything or take anything away. You can take all of this, put it in your pack, whatever that may be, and be pretty confident that you have the tools that you need. So tourniquet, real quick, that's what we use to address arterial bleeding, typically in your limbs, your arms and your legs. And that would be applied, generally speaking, between 2 to 4 inches above the wound, or if you're a civilian, a lay person, you can put it high and tight, that's just fine. Trauma shears, we kind of talked about, pretty self-explanatory. Chest seals are going to be to treat, generally speaking, penetrating trauma to the thoracic cavity, such as a gunshot wound, a stabbing. I've even seen mountain bikers who take a really bad spill and they take a tree branch or a root into their chest cavity. And so we would seal that with a vented chest seal so that they can expel air from their chest cavity without inspiring air into their chest cavity. Because if that happens, it starts to collapse the lung and it can cause what's called a tension pneumothorax. If that does happen, you can address a tension pneumothorax with this. But again, a very advanced skill that can be quite dangerous if done improperly. You get a survival blanket. when you've suffered severe trauma, you are going to be in shock. There's different types of shock. If you're losing a lot of blood volume, it doesn't matter what type of shock. The point is, when you are in shock, your body loses its ability to properly manage its temperature. So you have to keep that person warm, and this is going to radiate the body heat back towards the victim or the patient. So a survival blanket, I think, is a great addition. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. A SWAT-T tourniquet is a tourniquet, as the name implies. However, it's kind of a secondary tourniquet as far as I'm concerned, because there's just not a ton of evidence-based research on it. There's a lot of anecdotal evidence that says that these can, in fact, provide enough constriction to stop arterial blood flow, and that's been confirmed with, Doppler and things like that. However, there's just not a lot of it, at least that I've seen. So for me, this is a secondary option to apply to another person. If I'm applying it to myself or you're applying it to yourself, this is the tourniquet that you want, the best tourniquet in the world. But this can be used to apply kind of like buddy aid to another person. I've trained with one of these to self-apply it to myself, and I can do it, but it's very challenging, and just go with the cat tourniquet. The cool thing about a SWAT-T, though, and I carry one in my personal trauma kit, is that it's multifunctional in that you can create a pressure dressing with a SWAT-T tourniquet. So for example, you could take your Quick Clot combat gauze, take it out of the package, put the entire thing on top of a severe bleed, a massive laceration or something like that that's bleeding profusely, maybe not arterial blood spurting, but a lot of blood. Put that on top of the wound and secure it in place with a SWAT-T tourniquet by applying some pressure as you stretch it, and it creates that constriction and that pressure to help stop the bleeding. You could also accomplish the same thing by using the self-adherent wrap and wrapping that around the combat gauze. The other thing that the combat gauze is used for, and kind of the primary use, at least for me, is for packing wounds. And this is packaged in such a way that it's Z-folded, which is important when you're talking about wound packing, because the last thing you want is to drop a roll of gauze and have it roll away like a roll of toilet paper or something like that. So this is Z-folded over itself, kind of like a Kleenex would be. And we would use this to pack a wound that happens in an area where we cannot apply a tourniquet. Again, tourniquets are for extremities, arms and legs. A junctional hemorrhage would be a bleed in an area such as, for example, the groin, up near the armpits, the neck, places where we can't put a tourniquet. Those would be junctional locations, and we would pack those wounds with wound packing material. That's what this is. It's wound packing material, and it's Z-folded. It's impregnated with a hemostatic agent, and it's fantastic stuff. You can put it, again, directly on top of a wound, or you can pack it into a wound. Very versatile, but not cheap. And you may think the cost of this kit seems expensive, but that right there, if you buy that on Amazon today, and who knows who's selling it to you, but if you buy that today on Amazon, it's like $45 just for that one piece of gear. So very high quality components here. The ARS needle, just real quick, is used to treat what's called a tension pneumothorax. In here is a needle and a catheter that would be inserted through the chest wall into the thoracic cavity to relieve pressure that's built up from something like a penetrating chest trauma. And it's an advanced skill, as I mentioned. If you put it in the wrong place, you can cause a lot of damage. It can be life-saving, and so if you want to keep it in your kit and hope that a paramedic or a doctor is nearby, then that's all good. But just be aware that there is kind of an authorization required to use something like that, so just keep that in mind. But again, the way it would work is you would put it into their chest cavity or through the chest wall into the thoracic cavity, and the air that has been trapped in the thoracic cavity would be allowed to escape through that catheter. You would kind of hear a rush of air as that air escaped, and that would relieve the pressure that's collapsing that lung and causing some major physiological problems for that patient. So all in all, this is a great kit. You could certainly add some things to it. You could take things away, but I think as it sits, It's perfectly fine. The only thing that I think is critical that you add to this kit that does not come with it is a Sharpie marker. You need to be able to mark tourniquet times. And my recommendation is to mark it on the tourniquet time tab as well as on the patient's forehead. With a Sharpie marker, write the letters TQ and the time, and write it big and write it on their forehead. It may sound, degrading or rude, but it's important to understand when it was applied. And I've always been told and tell people write it on their forehead. So my constructive feedback, I guess, to MedTac would be to include a Sharpie. They cost $1. I've probably got 10 of them in my kitchen drawer, so it's critical that it be in the kit as far as I'm concerned. It would be nice if it was included, but if you order one, throw in a Sharpie. That's the only thing that I think is a kind of non-negotiable that needs to be added to this kit. If you want to throw in a flashlight or an Israeli bandage or something like that, more power to you. But again, remember that there's a line that you don't want to cross where it becomes so cumbersome that you just don't carry it. The whole intention with this, and kind of Dr. Tomo's vision, and I totally agree with this, is that it has to be something that you'll actually carry. This would fit very easily into a lot of people's EDC bags, into their school backpacks, into their work backpack, into a woman's purse. There's a lot of ways to carry this. Keep it in your vehicle, and hell, just hold it by the handle and carry it with pride. I don't care. But the point is, you need to have it with you. And once you cross a certain line with adding and adding and adding, then you're just not going to carry it. But if you do want to do that, get the sling pack because it's going to have more room for expansion. Just, again, make sure you carry it. So, as I mentioned, I bought one for myself. I put my money where my mouth is, and it's going in my wife's car. And who spends time in my wife's car most often? My wife and my toddler son, my young son. So these are all products that I personally recommend, that I personally have used, that I personally carry, and that I would really like to have should I need to render aid to myself, my family, or somebody in need. So that's the shorter version of the Save a Life kit from MedTac. If you want the feature length, that's available as well. All the links will be below. Thanks for watching. I really, really do appreciate it. And this is something that I really am passionate about and do not take lightly. So I would never make a recommendation when it comes to medical equipment that is not something that I would use myself. So I want to make that very clear because I take this very, very seriously. Having done it for a living and just having a passion for people and being a compassionate person and being into this kind of stuff, I do not take this lightly. This is not, this isn't just some pocket knife, right? Or some flashlight. This is life-saving equipment. And I think it was well thought out and well put together. So thanks for indulging me. I really do appreciate it. Again, links below, and I'll talk to you soon.